guys, what's up? It is Sabrina here and welcome back to another video on my channel. Today we are going to be talking about how I stopped spending all our money and stop consuming so much and how you guys can do the same. I think this is really relevant because we live in such a consumerist culture, whether you're in the United States or in other countries, and it is very detrimental not only to our finances but to our brains and our souls, because a lot of times we are looking for things to fill a place in our hearts that belong to the Lord. Where contentment and joy should be, there is constant buying, consuming, spending money in places where we shouldn't. I am going to be talking about how we live on one income, which is my husband's income, and how I stopped spending so much, because I feel like while we were never in the negative, we were always at zero, and my husband makes a good amount of money. It's just that I was not stewarding it correctly and we were wasting so much. So if that's you, hopefully this can help you. A lot of these are common sense, but I do hope that regardless of whether you've heard them before or not, it can motivate you to be disciplined with your finances and disciplined with your spending. Especially as the women of the household, we typically buy the groceries, we typically buy the laundry detergents and clothing for our kids. And so it's really important that we learn to be very diligent with how we steward our money. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is to be honest with your bad stewardship. This was so hard for me to admit because I was just constantly telling myself, like, I need this. This is good for my household. My kid needs these new clothes. They look so cute and they add to our family. And in reality, my kid did not need new clothes. What it comes down to is a lack of stewarding what the Lord has given us faithfully. And this is where a lot of women just completely don't want to view it as something that is within their control. I think if we're really honest with ourselves, we overspend in many areas. We just don't want to confront that. And so for me, just to be honest with the fact that I was not stewarding what my husband was making, and that the Lord was trusting us with this money and I was spending it in ways that I shouldn't. Number two is to learn faith in God. Living on one income and trusting that God will provide for our family, it takes a lot of faith. It takes a lot of trust in the Lord and in your husband. And I think that this is just something that you have to walk by faith in. A lot of women and a lot of people today, we're all so scared that husbands will leave us or that God won't provide for us. But if you married a man that fears the Lord and is faithful to you, then there is nothing to fear. Even if your husband can't work or can't provide or fails you, you know God loves you, you know He cares about you, He will take care of you. There's verses in the Bible that say, if God takes care of the sparrows, how much more will He take care of His people? So I think there's a lot of fear around the economy, not having enough money and inflation, and I think that fear needs to be replaced with faith in God. So whatever He has given you, learn to be content with that, learn to live within your means and work with it. Not spending money and living with one income requires a lot of faith in God, but it is possible, and I believe He has called us to that. So if you don't have faith in God, this is going to be a stressful endeavor for you all the way through. It's never going to get better unless you put your trust in God, knowing that He will take care of you and your family. Obviously, there is an aspect of human responsibility in this, which is why I'm making this video, but it all does need to begin with faith in God rather than fear. If we're making our decisions based on fear of how the economy will go, fear of not having enough money, fear that if we cut back on spending, we won't be as happy, those are all fears that are actually sin. To make decisions out of fear is to make decisions in sin. We have to just trust God in this and take care of what we can. That leads to number three, which is to live below your means. This is something not a lot of people do anymore, okay? It's super uncommon. And I think that social media has actually contributed to this issue because we are watching YouTubers that are like the 1% of society that live the lives they live because they have great incomes, and we try to keep up. We are buying all the stuff that they're recommending to us on Amazon. We're trying to decorate our houses and style our closets to look like theirs, and in reality, we are just not at their means. Maybe a YouTuber is living below their means, but they're actually, in our standards, living lavishly. And so we try to copy that. Do you see where I'm going here? Living below your means means that whatever you're making, you're actually living less than that. So for example, if you make $80,000 a year, you're living like you're making $50,000 or $60,000 a year. That's what living below your means is. My husband's income, because he's self-employed, kind of fluctuates. So what we've done is we've taken the lowest amount he's ever made in a month, and we tried to budget and live off that. That gives us a lot more extra to save and to have as a cushion, because we're not living like we're making X, we're living like we're making Y, which is actually lower than X. So this is a huge thing that requires discipline, because it's hard. And when your income goes up, typically people's living standard goes up, and that way they can be making $1 million a year and still saving nothing, because their standard of living is still at or above their income. That's why so many people are in debt too. So if you are living below your means, really trying hard to do that. And I understand everybody has different incomes, but as much as it is possible, as much as you can to live below your means. There are definitely months where we have a ton of expenses, medical bills, car parts that we need to buy for our used cars, things like that. And sometimes we don't save a lot. Sometimes we live far above what our budget was. And those are times when we just, like I said, we're not saving a lot, but because we try to live below our means in other areas, and we do that most of the time, we're not drowning. And so even if we have a month where we save nothing, the rest of the months make up for that. Is to make a budget plan and track every single dollar. When we first got married, I tried to do a budget plan and I just didn't stick to it because I just did not structure it right. I had downloaded some apps and I tried to follow what the apps were recommending on how to budget, and I realized I kind of need to make my own layout. I went on the Numbers app on my iPhone and I just kind of made my own graph, my own chart, how everything works. Maybe I can make a video on the details of that, but essentially I set it up how it made the most sense to my brain, and therefore I was actually able to keep up with it because it made sense to me and it worked for me. So out of breath, I am pregnant. On the things that will fluctuate, like groceries, gas, eating out, miscellaneous, those kinds of things that aren't always exactly the same every month, although we try to have them the same, I will have, let's say, for example, we have $600 allotted to groceries a month. We could live well below that, but that's what we have right now. On one column, I have left. It's called left in groceries, $600 when we begin the month. And then when I go to Costco and spend some money, say spend $150. Well, now I write under the spent category $150, and then I take from left, 600 minus 150 is 450. Now, everything that's in the spent column adds up in a sum at the bottom that I can constantly see how much we've spent already. And then left, I see how much is left in that column that we can still spend. So for me, this makes the most sense because I'm just able to tangibly see what we've spent, what's the sum of total expenditures, and what we have left in that budget for the month. And this has really helped me. So if you guys don't already, please make a budget plan. Even if you are convinced you're not a budget person like I was, you actually might be. You actually probably are. You're just not doing it in the way that makes sense to you. If I go spend $150 on a hot dog in the food court at Costco, I write it down. I have it in my phone. I never forget to write it down because all the credit card expenditures come up on my husband's phone. So I'm able to look at what his phone says and write it down. Track every single dollar. When you have to do this at every single store, every single expenditure, you realize how much you don't actually want to swipe your credit card because you have a lot to add up. If you're able to see where your money is going, you can direct it better and make decisions on where to cut back. Number 5 is to make it a fun challenge to see how far you can stretch every single dollar. Be creative and where you can cut costs. I have $80 every month that I can spend on hair products, makeup products, clothing, shoes, anything that basically needs replaced or that I need a new item of. Now, $80 may sound like a lot, but when it comes to a pair of tennis shoes, usually it's around $80 to $100. So I really have to be careful with what I'm buying. I don't just go into a store and pick up random things anymore that I like because I know I only have a certain amount every month. If I need a new blush, that's $10 right there. If I need a new workout top, that's $15 right there. And so it really does add up and I'm able to be more conscious about it. So for example, how can I stretch every dollar instead of, and I'll talk about this later in a later tip, But instead of buying something brand new, can I thrift it? Can I get it used on Facebook Marketplace? Can I get something that is similar, that is cheaper? Or can I just do without it? My dish soap dispenser in my kitchen has kind of been acting up for a couple months now, but I'm like, you know what? It still works. I can still use it. I don't necessarily need a brand new one until it really completely stops working. So just trying to see how far you can stretch your dollars is kind of challenging, but it's also fun too. I can buy the prepackaged small little yogurts for 15 bucks, or I can buy a whole big tub from Costco for 5 bucks, and that's stretching your dollars. Number 6 is to create an emergency fund where you treat it like an expense and put money into it every single month. An emergency fund is not something that most people think that they can afford because they're barely living off what they have. But if you treat it like a bill, let's say your electrical bill is $150, you're never going to not pay that bill because you want your lights to be on and your AC to work, right? So if you treat an emergency fund like a bill and it has to be paid every month, you're gonna find room in your budget and in your income to pay for it. Reconsider and prioritize what is actually a necessity versus a desire. This is another thing that a lot of us struggle with because we are able to rationalize our purchases like nothing else. We justify everything in the name of self-care or, oh, I really need this. I don't think we realize how little we actually need to live and thrive. You know, a lot of people just think, oh, I don't want to just survive. I want to thrive. You don't need things to thrive, okay? You need a roof over your head, food on your table, and clothes on your body, and a lot of other things we don't actually need. I'm not saying don't get makeup or don't buy clothing for yourself or jewelry. I'm just saying that you have to really be honest with yourself when you're purchasing something and be like, is this something I need? Do I need this workout top, or can I use something else that I have? Do I need this coffee, or can I just make it at home? Is it really a necessity? Is it essential for your life, for the function of your home? A lot of times we're like, oh, well, this would help me function better in my home. But in reality, what we have works just fine. We're just discontent with it. And so we have to really ponder what is truly a necessity versus a desire, and be honest with ourselves, be ruthless with ourselves, because so much of what we consider a necessity is not. Do you need a new car, or do you just want a new car? Do you need a new phone, or do you just want a new phone? Can you make do with the one you have? Number 8 is another principle. Don't ever buy anything if you don't have the cash right now. So as an example, my husband's wisdom teeth really need to be taken out soon, and it is not as pressing as I know it is for some people. And so obviously if it's like a medical emergency, that's different. But if it's not a pressing issue, we are trying our best to save up so we can just pay for it all up front and not have payments. Same thing with his phone. His phone is kind of really old and breaking on him, but we are not going to buy a new phone until we've got the cash to pay for the full iPhone. This is a principle of not spending money you don't have. Credit cards have made it incredibly easy to just get on a payment plan and not have to pay for it right now. You can have instant gratification. This is what really shocked me. I was online shopping and I saw a little thing in the corner that said, pay for your clothing in 4 separate payments. No need to rush. And it was just so shocking to me that to buy clothing, and this was not an expensive store, this was like an affordable place, to buy clothing, you can set up a payment plan. I think that mindset is so detrimental to our country and our well-being. Our mind just craves that instant gratification, that it doesn't want to wait for things. It doesn't want to save up the money to attain it. And I have found that when I really want something, if I take the time to save up the money that it would take to buy that thing, I typically don't want it at the end, or I want something else that's a little more cheaper because I know how hard it was to save up that money. It's just not wise to borrow money and be in debt and enslaved. We already have a mortgage, so that is a big enough debt to have. We don't want to add on to that. We try our best not to ever take out loans unless it's a dire emergency situation, and then that's different. But as much as possible, don't buy things unless you have the cash for it, and don't buy it unless the cash has been set aside specifically for it. The 9th thing is to get rid of wish lists. Don't put things in your carts. If you need something and you don't have the money for it and you're gonna save up for it, trust me, you won't forget it. If it's truly a need and a necessity and you're gonna notice it every single day that you need it, you're not gonna forget. So don't do the wish list. I used to have a ton of Amazon wish lists. I had a whole folder on my phone of makeup products I wanted to try, and I deleted all of it, and guess what? I don't even remember what I had because it was not a true need. It was just desire. Stop scrolling and adding and pinning things that are just going to make you want to go spend money. Get rid of all that. The last thing is to buy quality used things if possible. A lot of our furniture is either been gifted to us by someone for our wedding, which was incredibly generous, or we bought it used on Facebook Marketplace, or we thrifted it at Goodwill. Hardly anything we have is actually brand new. If you can get it used, don't buy it new. This is our principle that we use with cars, with house furniture, and with anything else that we can. I love to thrift. I actually thrifted this top right here, and most of the things I'm buying now as far as clothing is thrifted. Not only does it make me have to search really hard and work for what I want to get instead of the instant just go to the store and grab what you need, but it helps me save a ton of money because it's a fraction of the price. This is a Target brand, and this was $35 at Target, okay? I went to Goodwill and I found it for $2. It's hard to find clothes at the thrift store, but if you put in the work, you typically can find something. Obviously, this doesn't apply to absolutely everything, but as much as you can, do that. Anyways, guys, those are kind of my 9 tips on how to stop spending so much money, how I stopped spending so much money and consuming so much. It was, I think, for me to realize it was a spiritual issue of just not stewarding my things well and not being content. When you're taking good care of the things you already have, typically, you're not gonna wanna go out and buy more things. Let me know if this was a helpful video or not. I just really wanna encourage other women out there that if you have a shopping addiction or you just have been a bad steward with your money, it's possible to break that habit. It's possible to become a wise, diligent steward of your money. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.